Before we get started, I want you to know that I turned ads off for this video so you can enjoy it in peace. YouTube said they would, but I trust them about as much as I trust gas station sushi, about as much as I trust a rattlesnake wearing a fake mustache, about as much as I trust a beer that I found on top of a urinal. If they do put an ad on this, please do me a favor and go out of your way not to purchase what they're selling. Now with that said, please enjoy these 5 short videos of me having fun in the shop. And don't worry, I'm going to cash this check later. I have a question. And it's a question that I turn inward and ask of myself. And that question is, how far can I shoot a crossbow in my basement? Finding the optimal shot distance down here is something of a challenge. This is the general shape of the basement. Got the stairs right there. I promise that wasn't a beer. These are some partition walls that I've built down here. Oh, I'm having way more fun with this than I should. This one. That's how the basement's laid out. Pretty accurate, if I do say so myself. In the search for the longest shot possible, the diagonal immediately comes to mind, and it almost works. But unfortunately, there's quite a bit of wall in the way. Now, don't get me wrong, the thought did occur to me to make some modifications. Now, what does work pretty well is this path, and there are 3 notable obstructions. My lathe, whose armature that holds the switch box is just obnoxiously in the way. The wall itself, but I have my methods for dealing with that. And finally, my furnace. As you can see here, I drew the origin of the shot from behind the furnace, and that's not a mistake. I actually have a gap in the ducting here that I think is going to be just fine to shoot through. And I'm going to hang my target bag around here or so. This little distance here is a mistake. I could correct this to about here. But if I miss, for the cost of 1 measly crossbow bolt, that's what I'm getting. That's all the planning I need. Let's get her done. The window I intend to cut will be in a rectangle about like so. This rail and this outlet used to be for a TV that we don't really use anymore, so I'm okay with getting rid of both of them. That's the outlet box on the other side of the wall, and it feeds an outlet down here that I also don't use, so it can go too. Before you do any electrical work, it's important to confirm that what you're working on is not energized. I have a tester here, and every once in a while I like to give it a test against a known source of electricity. Just a quick and easy double check to make sure the equipment you're trusting is functional. It's definitely a good habit to get into. However, in my case, I'm being overly cautious because I know this outlet is dead for sure. And I know that because the dickhead electricians did not bother to rewire it after they cut it. I had a minor issue with the drywall here, which may or may not have been karate kick related, but it's no matter. I'm going to trim this out a little nicer and put something nice on the outside. When it's a tight line-to-line fit like that, you either got to tap it in place or smack it in place, because you can't tip it in place. And I know if I take it back to the saw, it's going to be a full inch shorter somehow. Let's try it up here. Good enough? I am saddened to report that I do not have enough material. Although I would have if I had not cut this piece wrong earlier. Oh well, make do with what you got. Oh, a real trim carpenter would have that done already. Yeah, I bet you would. I bet you would, wouldn't you? Alright, that's what I call good enough. This is all around one of the sillier things I've done in a little while, and I dig it. It kind of looks like I hung a framed photograph of my shop. I do believe my best shot lines up about where the leaf blower is, Now it's time to hang the target bag. Oh, it's perfect. Hell yeah. Now I may or may not take some practice shots off camera before setting up my camera very close to the target bag. Does that violate the spirit of what I'm doing? Yes, it does. Yeah, you know what? No, we're gonna... No matter where 0 is on this thing, I'm going to shoot it towards my expensive phone from the full distance first try. It's happening. I'm proud I caught myself and did not succumb to the temptation of being sensible. I've got my phone set up a couple inches away from the bag and pointing towards where I'll be shooting from. My hope with this angle is that you'll be able to see the bolt in midair for at least a frame or two. Success! I don't know about you, but I would say that a little under 3/16 of an inch off while shooting from pretty far away and crouching behind a furnace, hoping spiders don't crawl on me, not bad. Now, this dimension, that one is arguably pretty awful. Yeah, 6 inches high is generally not considered a good shot, but all that matters down here is that you have fun. Now, in my defense, I did forget which one of these pins to use, so I'll do some test shots and I'll get it a little more accurate. I've got my phone positioned quite a bit closer to the target this time. I have about a 300-mile road trip planned tomorrow morning, and if I wreck my phone doing this, I'm going to be looking up the directions on my laptop and writing them down like it's the early 2000s. Wish me luck. So, my phone was about here, and I think I subconsciously pulled the shot in the less expensive direction. If I was going to pull, I'm glad I did it that way. Anyway, this is getting too crazy for my situation, so I'm going to call it here. I'm definitely going to shoot a whole bunch more times, but probably with my phone somewhere else. So I'll be the first to say it looks pretty shitty, but I think that's actually kind of on brand for those live, laugh, love signs. My wife has no idea that I've cut the hole in the wall over there. And I'm going to put this in that frame section so it looks like I just hung a framed picture on the wall. And then I'm going to reveal to her the true purpose, and she's probably going to laugh her ass off. Okay, I'm in business. That actually looks pretty convincing from the distance that I'll be showing this to her from. Did I misspell laugh? Okay, I just checked. Thank goodness I didn't, but... Why did that even cross my mind? I'm pretty well accomplished in life. I should know how to spell laugh. All right, so I made a little art piece.
Love it.
Now, I actually, here, stand back over there for a second.
Okay. I'm debating how much I love you.
I actually lied. It's not just an art piece, it's functional.
Okay. There's just a hole in the wall. There's gonna be a hole in the wall.
It's a hole in the wall that lets you fire the crossbow from behind the furnace to the target bag over there.
What do you mean behind? Oh my god, like, you gotta, like...
Yes.
Oh my god,
I had
Dave.
the stock pressed up against the wall, basically. And I'm like, I've got it on my shoulder like a bazooka. Have you ever been watching Breaking Bad and then out of nowhere there's a shot like this? This is part of the basement we call the stand space. And what makes this area novel, compared to other parts of the basement where standing is generally possible, is that this area was supposed to be a crawl space. And part of it, unfortunately, still is. But most of it has a ceiling that's 6 foot 1 inch. This wall you see here used to be the exterior foundation wall of our house. And now it's this one. Or at least it is underneath the spray foam. I'd like to make this room more usable for storage, and before I do that, I'd like to make it a little nicer in here. One big step is to paint this wall white, just so it's a little brighter and cleaner. In order to do that, I need to get all of the remaining clay and dirt off of this wall. Brushing by hand has proved the most sensible approach. I've come to that conclusion because a previous attempt proved to be a little overzealous.
I just realized it's getting kind of dusty in here. Maybe I should put some plastic on the doorway. That might be smart.
Just one of the many reasons why it makes plenty of sense to mount an old furnace blower in your window. When I was at Home Depot looking for these, I couldn't find them right away. So I asked a guy that worked there, I'm looking for a big sponge. And he walked me right over to these, grabbed them off the shelf and put them in my hand, as if to end the conversation entirely on like, oh, maybe I want that sponge. Maybe I want that sponge. He was like, no, you get this shit right here. Truth be told, I'm just impressed by the salesmanship. I just knocked the dirt off of this, and for a while when I was working down here, I thought it was just a plant root or something. Guess again. Much to my amazement, that is a strand of 14 gauge conductor. That'll do. I will never understand how I wound up with so many rollers. I cannot describe how excited I am to paint this wall. My surface preparation is abysmal. I have no intent of keeping the paint off the floor, and this taping is some of the least cautious and minimal taping I've ever done. Case in point. But what makes me so excited is there's just simply no expectation for me to do a good job on this wall. As a matter of fact, a beautiful, immaculate paint job would actually look pretty weird. I'm just gonna go ham. Walking into the store, I had no idea they even made them this long, and I do believe this qualifies. What it lacks in quality, it makes up for in expedience. I got a little overzealous and tried to push my paint tray, and I spilled some on the floor. But it's no matter, because I can just do this. Has this ever happened to you, where you have a big gap in your surface that you're painting, and your roller just can't seem to get in there? Well, no matter, just do this. Now that's what I call quality. I've been saving this big nasty for last. I'm curious to see how it'll take a coat. Not bad. Miss a spot. I'm proud to report that the wall has been beautifully coated, completely evenly with no noticeable dark spots or runs, all in one coat. In all seriousness, how shitty it looks is directly proportional to how much fun I had. That was a good time. I like how the floor paint turned out. It really ties the room together. Some areas like this look a little goofy, but what are you gonna do? Now for the most important part of this project, moving my safe from its current home to its new one. Here's the plan. Using my trusty Harbor Freight hand truck, I'll lift the safe. This will be tricky because it weighs more than two of me. Special techniques may become necessary. The only clear path will be right next to the pool table. This would be a particularly unfortunate time for a wheel to blow out. The stand space is about 13 inches above the floor. The thought of pulling a 500-pound safe straight up is tempting, but building a ramp is probably smarter. Pulling the safe will still take a considerable amount of force. As such, a certain amount of jubilation should be expected. Just as easy as that. Save the maintenance too. It's been about a year since I built my compressed air system. I've had very good results overall, except I need to rework the remote drain line. If you haven't seen my original video on building this system, an important design feature that I added was this hose, which allowed me to drain condensed water remotely. My compressor resides in a back corner of the shop, so in this context, when I say remotely, I mean that this red hose travels up this way, and it takes a pit stop at this valve, which is hanging on my pull-up bar. The philosophy there being the pull-up bar is something that I visit regularly, and therefore I might get into the habit of draining the compressor here and there. But so far, the habit of visiting the pull-up bar on a regular basis has not manifested. In my defense, I do make it over to the hangboard a bit more frequently, but probably not frequently enough. Anyway, the purpose of that red tube is to travel away from my shop and to deposit the water from the tank into my sump pump. This tube is just too small. The pressure inside this tank is not quite up to the task of pushing the water all the way through this tube and whatever distance it is to the sump pump, especially not with all the twists and turns. I'm going to drain the rest and see what's in there, and I must admit I've been very bad about draining this tank manually, so there's going to be a lot. Oh, this is going to be nasty. If only smell came across in video, let me tell you, you guys are missing out. That nice rust color definitely bodes well for the structural integrity of the tank. Okay, all kidding aside, this is much less water than I thought I was going to get. Yes, it is rusty, but I think my tank will be sound for many years to come. I've seen the inside of tanks that have been neglected for years and years, but I know that mine has only been neglected for a number of months. So here's the new habits. My plan now is to upgrade the diameter of that red hose to just be the same sort of PEX pipe that the compressed air goes through. That red hose clips onto the PEX with these little 3D printed clips. And now I've got a whole big bag of them that are going to be doing a whole lot of nothing. I've got a valve and some tubing for sale here, or hose, I forget what I've been calling it. Barely used condition. I just grabbed one wrench of each size off the board because I didn't know what I needed and I don't feel like walking back. In my defense, these fittings are a weird size, and they always get chewed up anyway. Nothing like doing a lot of work to get 1/6 of a turn. If anyone knows where I can get 1/2-inch PEX to 1/4-inch NPT in one fitting, please let me know. This is the best way I've found so far, and it sucks. My plan is to route the drain line alongside the main compressed air supply line. In order to do that, I designed these new hangers that have 2 slots. I am well aware that PEX hangers can be purchased. As a matter of fact, I actually have some on my ceiling, but these just have a cool factor that cannot be had at Home Depot. Didn't expect that. Not the right type of screw to use for a countersunk design, but whatever, just don't slam it in super hard. I'm pulling the first run of PEX, and thanks to the pull-up bar, it's having an easier time getting pulled up into the ceiling. So who says I don't use this thing? My system is relatively leak-free and behaves pretty well, but you should not take that to mean that I know what I'm doing. If you're going to do this in your house with water, watch some videos, get some formal education. And by videos, I mean someone else's. Oh, I got no qualms admitting that at times I am a moron. Oh no, I forgot to put the ring on. Some PEX advice, which is also some life advice. It's much better if you put a ring on it. Or it could be way, way worse. I don't know you. Don't listen to anything I say. Just moments ago, I was singing that Beyonce song to myself about if you like it, you should put a ring on it. But I don't think I'm brave enough to put that audio in the video. Oh, the background audio of what's going on upstairs is just insanity. I don't know if the camera can pick it up, but I sure can. This loop is very close to the air compressor, and it serves as a check valve for the wastewater. I have some concerns that the compressor will not be able to force the water up and out a sufficient distance away from itself, and some of it may trickle back. But if it can make it over here, and it gets down into this leg, this is the highest point, and it won't be able to flow backwards. Kind of similar to the philosophy of a P-trap, but serving a different purpose. I'd like to thank the viewer who left this comment here. This is what got me thinking about this improvement. And to answer your question about routing the drain line at a lower altitude, possibly ground level, it's very unlikely that's going to work in my shop. Both directions that I might want to travel with the hose are entertaining spaces, so having some PEX on the floor is not going to fly, unfortunately. With great regret, I must use these commercially available PEX hangers. Mine only work if the tube is perpendicular or parallel to the joist. Also, I'm about to travel into part of the basement where the ceiling is already kind of cluttered, and I don't really want to add a bunch of neon orange hangers. I think they look pretty cool in my shop, but they're kind of a mismatch with the felt on my pool table. Time will tell if it will ever break, but if it does, at least it's in the corner of the shop. But if it does, it's gonna spray water everywhere. The only good thing I can say about this shot is that it's poorly lit, thereby making it harder to see the details. Time to go hit that valve and give it a test. I saw that from across the room, and much to my horror, did I realize what was happening. I think I might need to rethink this part of the system. I'm not even embarrassed. Ready for test 2, and I have the camera pulled much farther away this time. Alright, so the downside of that system is that it's very loud, but the upside is that it does not spray a tidal wave of stinky water onto my electrical box. I know how to quit when I'm ahead. I'm gonna go grab a mop. In the time it takes for this disc sander to spin down and stop, I set up my camera for this shot, and I didn't hurry either. I took my time. This thing spins down for probably like a full minute. Oh, you know what? Let's test. Oh my gosh, that took all day. I built this disc sander about 5 years ago. It has a 20-inch disc. It is almost completely made of wood, and it vibrates so much that when I need to move it around on the floor, I actually turn it on and then move it. Oh my gosh, in between shots where it's on, I'm gonna have to just do this to slow it down. Or I'm gonna be here for just minutes. I was coming around to the back of the machine to show you the motor, and then I noticed this paper that I had taped on here some years ago. I forgot what this is. Let's take a look. Oh, cool. This is the wiring instructions. That's neat. Okay, so it's coming back to me now. I remember finding that piece of paper inside the electrical box when I first bought this motor. It was jammed up with these wires. Oh shit, this is full of sawdust. Well, I'll probably have to address that at some point, sooner rather than later. But I can also pretend like I didn't see it. Lots of the design sensibilities of this machine are kind of goofy. There's elements like this where I used 8 screws where probably 2 would have been fine. Also, I used Phillips. Also, there's evidence here that I measured very carefully for some reason. I don't know, it was compelling me to do so. If I had to guess why there's so many fasteners, one reason that comes to mind is probably my desire to use up all my Phillips. But what's more likely is that I was excited about a new impact driver that I had bought, and I was just having fun. If I could go back in time and rebuild this thing or do it over again, I'd probably use my wallet and a reputable vendor of disc sanders instead of this cockamamie bullshit. But he's been with me for about 5 years now and hasn't failed me yet, so for better or worse, you're part of the shop. Now, if something better that's affordable comes along, make no mistake, you're out on the curb, but until then. Alright, I know I was just being pretty harsh about the build of this machine, but this part is one that I'm pretty proud of. I built this hub to connect the disc to the motor. This plate and this arbor have a press fit together that is the full depth of the thickness of this plate. And this weld here, if you can believe it, is one of the earliest ones I did when I was first learning. And if you're calling bullshit on that, which is entirely reasonable, let me tell you how I did it. I set the part up in a manual indexer, very much like what you see here. So I was able to rotate it slowly with one hand. I had the torch attached to one of those magnetic indicator stands, and I think I attached them with rubber bands or something, and I positioned it right about here. There's your torch angle and arc length basically for free. And then with my setup doing the hard part for me, I just went like this. Results like this are pretty encouraging for a new welder. And I did not go and have it x-rayed, but look, the thing's been working for about 5 years, and I doubt it's going to fall apart now. If I give it a feel around some spots, I suppose I can feel some undercut. I figured I'd just say that out loud before some moron in the comments who thinks they know the first thing about welding says so. There, I stole your thunder. Oh, also, these bolts are going into T-nuts. They're not just threaded into wood. That would be a recipe for near instant death. Or at bare minimum, the disc coming off and shooting across the room at a high rate of speed. So that's my disc sander. In summation, it is generally useful, albeit poorly constructed, ultimately disposable. I give it 6 out of 10. By the way, if you think I altered the footage at the start of this segment in order to fake the rate of cut on that 2x4, you're kind of correct, but not in the way you think. All of those times and playback speeds are faithful, but the trickery was more of a practical effect. Alright, I best not get too greedy or no one's going to believe it. That'll do. Oh, this is going to be hilarious. Why did I do that? It amuses me. I like to think that my radial arm saw setup is awe-inspiring. Meaning that when most people see it, they go, what the hell's wrong with you? It features not 1, but 2 saws. One saw is fit with a thin kerf blade. This is for cutting wood in half with minimal wastage and turning fingers into stumps. The other side has a dado stack. It turns wood into clouds of dust and hands into a fine pink mist. At one point in time, I heard a rumor about dado stacks not being legal in European Union member countries. After a very low effort and almost certainly malinformed Google search, their saws need to stop rotating after a short period of time once the power is cut, and the extra rotational inertia of a dado stack often makes that goal impossible. So in order to remain compliant with their regulations, they manufacture the overall length of this arbor so short as to not permit a dado stack from being added. If anyone knows for sure, that's great. You can keep it to yourself because I don't really care. Now, the United States and Europe are very different, and the totality of our geopolitical differences is just not going to be summed up by a lone regulation regarding saw blades. But what I will say is, you guys are missing out. Oh, that's fucking crazy. The dado stack is a lot of fun, and I am not ashamed to admit that I'm kind of afraid of it. I mostly use it for making half-lap joinery, but I don't do that very often. The saw that I use most of the time is the thin kerf blade. The dado stack serves to illustrate that this machine can make a lot of dust very quickly, and that's given me some inspiration to improve my dust chute. The folks who designed the machine put this cute little port for a shop vac. This is absolutely not up to the task. If I had to guess why this is here, I would probably say it was considered acceptable at the time of design, or they knew full well that it was garbage, and they included it just so they could say this machine has dust control. Well, I know where it belongs. I just realized these instructions that were in plain sight tell you to lower the back of the guard as close to the workpiece as possible. I can readily concede that probably has some effect on the efficacy of the dust collection, but here's the problem. I don't have a lot of room for adjustment. There we go. That looks much uglier than it did before. I want to see if I can take this design intent that doesn't work for me and turn it into something that does. Something like this, that takes a powerful dust hose and lets it travel with the unit. Seems like it might be successful. Also, it would follow the saw when I turn the arm, something that the current dust chute underperforms at. This test I'm about to try is laughably crude, especially because the air inlet is only a fraction of what it should be. I expect it to fail miserably, but if it works at all, I'll probably learn something useful. But if it works even slightly, how awesome would that be? Well, that didn't work at all. But I think what I learned is that directionality is more important than airflow itself. Could you imagine being a pine tree? You're over 100 years old, you've survived 7 forest fires, and then some douchebag comes along and turns you into this. Whoops. Good thing I print them strong. Good thing I also clamp them in the wrong spot. That performance was also very lacking. I'm seeing a lot of dust shooting straight backwards. Maybe it would be a good idea to have the vacuum hose about here, stationary, with a big funnel around it. You know, like a dust chute. just realized that my nifty connection piece is not necessary, because when I trimmed the board for this angle, I removed the piece that was confining it around that. One of my favorite sayings is that no plan survives first contact with the enemy, but having a plan in the first place is usually a better strategy. Seems I still have lots to learn. Now it's time to turn the saw on and push it all the way back, cutting a groove in this board. This moment is kind of like when they smash champagne bottles on new ships. I believe I found the source of that resistance I was feeling, and I don't even use that thing. This is some bullshit. I thought that was bad. I also just discovered this when I have the arm over at 45 degrees. I sure got very far into development before I realized that most of this was probably, half was dog shit. Well, that's what happens when you're focused on making a video and not focused on making a functional dust chute. Seems I still have a lot to learn. After much testing and consideration, I am proud to reveal the dust chute that will be on my machine for the foreseeable future. Yes, believe it or not, the old ugly one just performed way better. The new one was fun to make, but it just didn't perform. This chute excels at plain 90-degree crosscuts, and that is 99% of what I do down here. The other one could do more stuff, but unfortunately it did it all poorly. In my mind, it takes one level of wisdom to create a dust chute that works, and it takes an entire extra level of wisdom to know when to quit.